Today, I would like to address the misuse of the term Greater Tibet in the People's Republic of China and to clarify its historical meaning and its contemporary political distortion. To understand Tibetan identity properly, we must first examine what Tibet has meant geographically and politically across history. Equally important is recognizing the long-standing divide and rule strategy that Tibetans have experienced under the PRC for more than 70 years. When most Chinese people today hear the word Tibet, they think only of the so-called Tibet Autonomous Region, or TR. This limited understanding has been deliberately exploited by some Chinese scholars who have promoted the concept of Greater Tibet to describe culturally and economically Tibetan areas outside the TR. At first glance, this term may appear reasonable. It acknowledges the broader geographic and cultural extent of Tibetan society. However, behind its use lies a clear political motive. By framing Tibetan areas outside the TAR as part of a so-called Greater Tibet, Tibetans who seek genuine freedom, rather than continued rule under the PRC, are labeled as separatists. Their legitimate demands are dismissed, and they are portrayed as attempting to seize nearly a quarter of China's landmass. In this way, the term is used not to recognize Tibetan history, but to criminalize Tibetan political aspirations and to stir Chinese nationalist sentiment against Tibetans. Crucially, this contemporary usage strips the term of its historical meaning. It reduces Tibetan regions outside the TAR to mere cultural spaces, while deliberately ignoring their historical political status, e.g., right to self-determination. In fact, the term Great Tibet has a well-documented origin. It dates back to the Tibetan imperial period, known in Tibetan history as the Tsenpo era. Tsenpo means son of heaven or son of God, and this imperial system lasted for over 1,000 years. The first Tsenpo, Nyatri Tsenpo, ascended the throne in Yarlung around 825 BCE. The last Tsenpo, Helkor Tsen, ruled until the mid-10th century and was the grandson of Langdharma, whose assassination marked the collapse of imperial rule. One of the most important historical references to Great Tibet appears during the reign of Tsenpo Ralpachen in the early 9th century. In the year 821, Tibet and Tang China concluded a peace treaty. In this treaty, the terms Great Tibet and Great Tang were used as mutual honorific titles, clearly demarcating two separate and sovereign territories. This inscription explicitly defines the borders between Tibet and Tang China. Places such as Tseng Shu, now identified as Qingshui County in Gansu Province, can still be located today. This historical usage of Great Tibet bears no resemblance to the PRC's modern political framing of Greater Tibet. Judging by its territory, population, and imperial power at the time, Tibet fully deserved the title Great Tibet. However, some contemporary Chinese scholars deliberately remove this term from its original historical context and reuse it misleadingly, confusing audiences unfamiliar with Tibetan history. Finally, I would like to note that the Tibet-China Conflict Resolution Act, enacted by the United States in 2024, offers a significantly corrected definition of Tibet. Although it concedes some Tibetan territory, it nonetheless represents a clear rejection of the PRC's politically constructed notion of so-called Greater Tibet. Thank you for watching, and if this talk was helpful, please like, subscribe, and join us again next Friday for more content.